I'm bringing you the first in a series, a special painting lesson on your boy's birthday. Welcome back to Lizard of Doom, I am Max. Now in this video I'm going to be taking people's submissions that they have asked for improvements on. So these people who have submitted have asked for critique and improvements. This is going to be an ongoing series hopefully, so if you want to be in the future one of these, I'm not guaranteeing it, I'm going to be pulling my resources from the Lizard of Doom Discord. The Critiquing Miniatures little sub-channel on the side there, that's where I'm going to be getting everyone's submissions from. This series is going to be called Lizard Lessons, so this is the first of hopefully many. And this video is sponsored by The Crate from Only Games. I'm going to be using some miniatures from their product to help with these painting tutorials. So let's have a little look at what they have to offer. I can also give you a little code in this little promotion to get the first one for free, so stay tuned for that. And I'm going to be picking one miniature from each crate to help with these tutorials. The Only Games crate comes in two options, sci-fi and fantasy. The fantasy one is actually my favourite of the two. It is perfect for D&D players. You get 3 miniatures in each of these crates. It is £10 per crate usually, but at the end of this, I will give you a code for 100% off your first crate. You get 3 miniatures in each one, as I said, so this is just the bases in this little one here. Let's have a look at what else we have to unwrap. We've got a little witch hunter in this box, which is probably my favourite, and this is the one I'll be using for a tutorial today because he's holding that light source. Perfect for this tutorial, and a lovely sculpt. Next we have this kind of artificer looking dude with a repeating crossbow thing that fires stakes. Is this like a little vampire hunting squad? This would make a hell of a D&D party. Really cool sculpt. I love the little goggles. A little steampunky vibe to this fantasy artificer dude. And last but not least, we have a plague doctor. Pretty sick. This would be a hell of a crew in a D&D campaign. With these as the options, the one I'm definitely using is going to be the little Van Helsing guy. And last time I opened one of these fantasy crates, I got this huge monster, so it's not always people-sized miniatures you get in these. It is different every month. The sci-fi crate with its cool sci-fi outer packaging also contains 3 miniatures. I can see that one in the middle here is a bigger thing, so I'll open that last. First of all, we have some kind of colonial marine guy with a cool textured base. Yeah, I was promised something alien-y from the guys at Only Games for this crate. And this is, this is a cool-ass colonial marine. He's even got the stabilizer for the big gun and the cool detector thing poking over his shoulder. Very nice indeed. Let's have a little look at what's in the second package. The second package, we seem to have some kind of female version. This is cool. Switching up the genders. Another cool sculpt. She's got all the same gear. These would make kind of a nice counts as for Astra Militarum as well. And finally, we have what I was promised, the alien. This kind of looks like a Tyrannid brain bug. Is it a Neurogaunt? Is that the right name for one of these big brainy boys? But yeah, this is hella cool and well worth £10. Definitely have a look at this. Let me tell you a little bit more about the specifics of these crates. They cost £10 per month plus postage and packaging. You get 3 grey miniatures featured from the designer of the month. If you use code LIZARDCRATE, one word or capitals, then you will get your first one for free if you are a new customer. You just have to pay the postage and packaging. The link is down below for these. This is also a commission link. So not only do you get a good deal, I will get a little bit of commission back. Also, if you upload finished pictures of your work, you will then get a discount on the next one. And also you get 20% off the designer of the month. This month is Titanforge. You can get 20% off them using SEPTCRATE20 as a code for their other products on Only Games. Also, I'm working on the same campaign as Duncan Rhodes. I've made it, baby! Duncan's team are doing exclusive painting tutorials for one of these miniatures per month, which you have access to if you are signed up for the crates. So thank you to Only Games for sponsoring this video. The two people I'm going to be helping out to start with are kind of a broad representation of what I saw when I asked for submissions to start with. This is Buggerit's work, this is an Infinity miniature, and the highlights are what I'm going to be focusing on for the improvement side of things. It is a very nicely painted miniature, all the highlights are in exactly the right place, but what they need a little bit of work on is blending. Now I am incredibly nitpicking here with the people I'm helping, but they asked for improvement and this is what would take their painting to the next level. So Buggerit has this issue where the highlights are in quite heavy steps, and also so does Esri. Esri has painted this lovely Space Marine, but as you can see the highlights are quite heavy and not blended. So I'm going to show you how to blend them in. This was representative of quite a few people who submitted their pictures. This is how you smooth out your blends. The first thing we're going to talk about is the consistency of a glaze, because glazing is what we're going to use to transition this better. Now Games Workshop on their tutorials on Warhammer Plus say about 20 to 80% paint to water. That is nonsense. It depends entirely on the paint and you have to figure that out for yourself. I cannot give you exact measurements, but add water until you're roughly at this consistency. Look how it seeps into the fingerprint there. This is very, very thin. Maybe it could do with a little bit more pigment in there, so I added a little bit more, trying to make sure that this was still paint and not a wash. You do not want to overload your brush. This is not a wash. You do not want it pooling. You want to be painting layers with this thing. This is about right as I've got it here. This is the consistency you want it to be. This is a filter. This is not a layer. We are putting a coloured filter over the model with glazes. Here we have quite a quickly painted miniature to show you the technique on. You can see his shirt and his trousers are what we're focusing on here. The transitions are there. All of the highlights are in the right place, but there's quite a heavy step in between the high highlights, the mid highlights, and the low points. This can be smoothed out really easily using a glaze. The top of the hat there is not going to be much of an issue because the top should be a lot brighter. But you can see on the arm there and on the back of his shirt, things need to be a little bit smoother between all these transitions. The trousers here, you can see this really high highlight that's in the right place, but is differing quite substantially from the area around it, and the black area underneath, and you can see it even worse on this side of the leg. This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. To fix this, we will take the mid-tone for each of these colours, dark sea blue being the mid-tone for the trousers, and brownish green being the mid-tone for the t-shirt there. These are going to be turned into glazes and used to smooth it all out. Take a small amount on your brush and just glaze it over the joint. When I've got too much on my brush, I do like to take it off on my hand because that is less absorbent than taking it off on a paper towel. You want your brush to stay wet, just have less on it. The glaze goes over the join between the highlight and the mid-tone, and then also over the join between the mid-tone and the shadow layer. The mid-tone is the rough colour of the material you want. The highlight is where more light is hitting it, and then the shadow is where less light is hitting it. So the main colour of the thing you are painting should be the mid-tone. This smooths it all out nicely in one simple step. This may take a couple of goes because, as I said, this is a filter of colour over the model, not layer. It just changes the colour of these areas slightly, but where we're joining the mid-tone, we are changing it to the same colour, so it doesn't change. So what that means is we're slightly filtering the colours either side of it to slowly turn into a gradient towards that mid-tone. As we go over it and over it again, we want to work in smaller areas, focusing on that join line. So when you start it, you do a bigger area that overlaps both the highlight and the mid-tone, or the shadow and the mid-tone, and then you work it smaller and smaller over 3 or 4 layers till you're just going over that joint line, and it should hopefully fade away quite nicely. This technique does take a little bit of patience. You've got to make sure you let each layer of this glaze dry before you go over it again. But the joy of working with such thin paint is that it does dry incredibly quickly, if not immediately. This means you can go back to that area pretty damn sharpish. So it sounds like a long technique because it takes 4 or 5 layers to complete, but that is not the case. Each layer is done very, very quickly indeed, without much time, so you can go back to it. And once you are done, you should have something like this. Smooth layers, smooth highlights, and smooth shadows. All one kind of gradient. You can see where I've worked it down the shirt there. Some places, like across his belly and the folds of the shirt, are such thin edges that you don't need to do this. That should be sharp. The only area I would like to improve on is this bit on the back of the leg there. That highlight is probably still a bit of a step for me, and I could do better. But all that will take is a couple more layers of the glaze. So I hope that helped Buggerit and Esri and everyone else who's looking for improvements on how to smooth out their blends. Now I will be helping Loopholes. See, Loopholes has submitted this lovely Space Marine bust with the OSL on top there. However, it has the same problem with the British fella who submitted, that's his name, I'm not just saying where he's from, who submitted this orc with the OSL on the end of the flamer. I'm going to be showing you how to blend these better, put a nice filter of light across stuff rather than making it the main colour. What we should be seeing is the colour of the sword and the flamer underneath with light on it, rather than the sword and the flamer being the same colour as the light. So for this effect, it actually comes into effect long before you start introducing the light source. The model needs the light built into it. You can see I've done a bad highlight here from the side with a rattle can. It's very speckly, but for this, I enjoy the bad highlight. The speckly nature is going to be coming in very handy very shortly. So we're going to be using the same glaze consistency as the before tutorial, but this time we are doing the first layer all over the area that needs to be that colour. This gives a little tinge of that colour to the black dark side of the model, but then anywhere that I can still see speckles needs the next glaze. And then it's kind of like a guide to show me which areas need more of the colour built up on them. As you apply the glaze to a smaller and smaller area, you should see the edge speckles starting to disappear first. This will show you that you need to work in the smaller area, then denoted by the new speckled area, which should be, in theory, smaller. You can do this with a normal rattle can. I just quite like using up old rattle cans for stuff like this. Once you've got to the point where all the speckles are then covered, you could then start building up in smaller areas a lighter colour. But I want this to be quite gloomy. This is a dungeon explorer seeking out a Dracula with his lantern. This step is also then repeatable for all of the other colours that are built up in this same way. This is the brown step on the boots, and I'll be doing exactly the same technique where I do an all over glaze with the first layer and then just covering any speckled areas with the next one. When that's done, it will look something like this. If you want to add a little bit of definition, you could glaze some dark black into the recesses, again with a glaze, or do a few edge highlights, which I'll do later just to pop things out a little bit more. But for now, this is looking pretty good. I'm going to do some NMM, non-metallic metal, on the metal areas. And here we have that. This isn't going to be in this tutorial. I'm still trying to improve at NMM myself. And when I feel confident enough, I will make a tutorial video on that to go with the masses of them on YouTube. But this guy is pretty much done, and we can move on to the lighting effect. You can see I've based the lantern windows there with white, and this will be the core for that effect. But first, a few little edge highlights on the leather here, just to pop them out and make them look a little less faded into the miniature itself. Then to make the lantern windows look dirty, I'm going to be going over the edges with a sepia wash, make it look like grub and soot and filth has built up on this old lantern this guy has been carrying around for decades, in and out every dungeon he has been into. And then we'll move on to the actual light. But yeah, that is a nice grubby, dirty old lantern ready for the candle to be placed inside. And we can see that the light source is coming from that lantern, as there is no light on the back of him. Pre-made glaze paints like this old Lamenter's yellow from Citadel themselves, and also this orange one from Duncan Road's Two Thin Coats, are amazing for glazing because they are made to be high pigmented at lower thicknesses, but they still need a little bit of thinning with water to get right. So make sure you take that into account. I will go over the area where the glow is going to be coming from entirely with this yellow, as that is going to be one of the brightest colours in this OSL. The yellow is going to be the base for everything, and it's going to be a very important step moving forwards. After that, I've run some of the orange around the top area of the lantern. This orange colour is going to be for things that are further away from the light source, because like I said earlier, glazing is a filter of colour over the model. This is going to be very important when you think about OSL. All of the model's colours need to shine through. You need to be able to tell what colour the model is, but the OSL light is going to be tinging the edges. Once I've done that, I use a little bit of ice yellow to give a bright point roughly in the middle where I thought the candle would be. And then after that, I would use a little dot of white in the middle of that ice yellow to give it a really, really bright point where the flame is on the candle. Now, if you're doing straight fire as your object source lighting, you're going to want to put these bright points in the lowest and deepest points of the fire rather than the top edges, as those are the brightest points in a flame. After I'd finished doing the flame effect on this lantern, I then ringed the edge again with some sepia shade to make it look like the filth was indeed on top of the glass that is in this lantern. I like this effect. It's quick and cheap and nasty and gives the effect really nicely without putting too much effort into it. Now it comes on to making the model look like the light is hitting it. I'm using a very thinned down version of that yellow glaze in the entire area that I deem close to the light source. This will be done a couple of times, building up slowly. It's way better to put less on and work up from there than it is to go too heavy too soon. Again, a bit of patience is needed for this, but this is what you achieve. Look how yellow tinged that area next to him is, but you can still see the colours through it. It looks a bit odd at the moment because the outside is still its normal colours, but we'll be putting the orange glaze on those areas in much the same fashion. Very thin, building up through layers as I see fit as I go, making sure it is still legible as the colours underneath. And this is what it should look like at the end. I'm almost completely finished with this. It needs some black in some of the recesses to add a few deeper shadows. Where I've glazed right up to the edges to make sure I was covering all those speckles now needs a little bit of shadow because there would be no light underneath. This again is done in a glaze. There would be some light refraction bouncing back to these areas, but they should be like a dark line under this coat where the light is not hitting, and areas like under the belt here as well. You can see that the light source is the other side of this. But this is pretty much there. I hope this helps you with the light sourcing on your miniatures. The colours of the miniature are still legible, but also the yellow and orange glow are still in there. This is the simplest and also, I believe, quickest way to do this kind of OSL, by baking the light values into the miniature before you start doing the light colour effect with the glaze paints. Get them from Duncan Road's Two Thin Coats because Citadel no longer make their range of pre-made glazes. So I hope that helped, loopholes and British fella. Thank you very much to my Patreons. Shablam, they're over here, and if you would like to join them, Shablam over there. That would be a nice little birthday present, thank you. And also thank you to Only Games for sponsoring this video. Hopefully this was helpful to at least 4 people that I chose in this video, and a bunch more of you out there. Remember, it is not a pile of shame, it is a pile of future fun. I'll see you next time, kids. Peace.